Guten Tag, and welcome to another quality content module freshly ground by Small Beans, where ideas are always percolating. If you enjoy this pod, please consider joining our community over at patreon.com/smallbeans, where only $3 a month gets you access to double the content, including Patreon-exclusive series like Spiel Boys and Star Trek: The Next Futurama, plus bonus episodes of your SB favorites. Much love, and enjoy the thing.
It's time for dads now. Look, it's all about dads. I don't want you talking about anything but dads, 'cause it's all dads now. It's inside dad.
But you heard the intro, right?
Oh,
You listened to the first episode?
yeah,
Yeah, all right,
I did. It was musical.
Yeah, that's right. I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
It's
'Cause I was
great.
like,
I think
went
it's
for it.
great.
Oh,
Let me
that's
just
so funny.
real quick. I just gotta do something real quick here. Nothing related to go into Small Beans.
I didn't even realize that you hadn't even
let me
listened
just
to it. That's
hold
so
on.
great.
Hold on.
That's so great.
Hold on. Hold on.
This is gonna be a live stream, an unboxing video.
Oh, yeah. I always listen to it, and I really like it. It's beautiful. You're beautiful in it.
That's so funny.
This is
so
amazing. You should leave this in. Me in real time discovering the theme to the podcast I'm in.
That's so great.
Listen, I'm like one
What?
of those actors who doesn't watch the movies they're in because it ruins the method.
Yeah, but it's also your big time in me, Dave. You're real big time right now.
It's not about big time. I have to edit most of the Gamefully Unemployed podcast. So if I don't have to listen to something with my voice in it, I
Yeah.
won't.
No, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way. It's just funny. It's funny to sometimes think that I'm friends with you more than you're friends with me. Is one way of saying it.
That is untrue.
I want validation from
That
you.
is
and
untrue.
You don't
Do
give a
you
shit.
listen to the Hypecasts you're in?
No, but I've listened to some of them.
I listen to every frame rate, unless it's a movie I haven't seen.
That's not true.
Yeah. I listen to all the Kings of Kings. I listen to all you guys' stuff. It's just what I casually
It's
listen
when
to.
you're in it. Yeah,
No,
that's fair.
if I'm not in it, I'll listen to it. That's the thing. You guys are just my podcast network, like that I'm just casually listening to, if that
Well,
makes
now
sense.
I feel bad because I don't listen to everything you do.
Exactly. So who's more of a friend than
Yeah,
who?
that's right. That's right. You got me there. And
I won.
Gonna have to think about it.
I won
Dave,
our friendship.
Dave wins. So this is a bunch of loose horse shit. I hate that.
Yeah.
This is Inside Dads. You heard it. I'm Abe Epperson, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm David Bell.
Yeah, dude. We're here to talk about dads.
Yeah, we
and
are.
we want to dissect what a dad movie is. And Dave and I have been talking about this for years because we love them. And we wanted to dissect what is the genre of dad, really? Like, what makes up the tenets of dad? When do you have a dad movie all in your hands? When is dad all over your hands?
Yeah.
And, we decided that it transcends genre. So we started to choose episodes around different genres. And this episode is about romance, the idea of the romance film. And we were like, what is a dad romance movie? And what did we decide, Dave?
Well, I mean, they read the title, but really what it takes is an Aaron Sorkin script. This is The American President.
Yes, it is. 1995.
Written by Aaron Sorkin on crack cocaine and directed by Rob Reiner, possibly also on crack cocaine, but not for sure. This is, I'll give you a real quick rundown. This is about the President of the United States, a widower, starts to date a lobbyist, and boy, oh boy, is that complicated for them.
Yes, it is.
This is I want to talk a little before we get into the dad, what this movie means to me, and I want to know what it means to you.
Yes, smart.
Abe, this movie works for me. I love this stupid fucking movie.
Yeah, I feel it. I like most movies that we're talking about, to at least one of us, it's a movie that works. We cry when they want us to cry.
Yes.
We feel when they want us to feel.
I laugh when they want me to laugh. It gets me every time.
We're the prime demographic.
Right, and I want to break down why I think that works. Because,
right.
and this is about Sorkin real quick. Most of the time I watch Sorkin, especially now, it's very cynically. It's very like hand jerk off motion.
That's right.
But Sorkin can be really good when the right actors do it. A Few Good Men, for example. This movie is made by Annette Bening and Michael Douglas. They fucking slay.
Yeah, they just pop right off the screen.
They're in their prime fuckable years. They're they really pop. They're amazing.
Most fuckable president that we've ever seen on screen.
Similarly, I could also watch an entire movie of just Michael Douglas bullying Michael J. Fox. Because that's another dynamic that just pops for me.
And you know what also works is just the little fucking Republican rat Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh my God, Ricky Dreyfuss.
Oh, I love it.
Christmas came early, or whatever he says.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so he's perfect. He knows he's perfect.
Yeah, and the one thing this movie doesn't have is I want them to have like a presidential debate and just like cross-examine each other, which doesn't happen in presidential debates, but I want it to.
Of course.
And I just want them to just maximize them dunking on each other. But obviously we get the finale, the big gesture in this movie, like in all romance films, comes down to a speech, and we'll get into it. But yeah, that speech is just dunking on Richard Dreyfuss, which is so much fun.
Because it's a dad film, and you got and a Sorkin film, which means it has to add the last line of the script has to be, and then everyone clapped, and it has to be a fucking speech.
Yes, that's right. It's a Sorkin, baby.
Yeah.
To kind of just reflect what you were just dropping and the vulnerability that you express, because, that's one thing that dad movies do is they don't let you be vulnerable that often, but they do signal when you can be vulnerable. And I think that this podcast is a safe space, and I thank you for your vulnerability, and I'll reciprocate and say and reference another romance film, ditto. Nice. Like I think I'm the same exact way with this movie. The stars are popping, the writing's doing its thing, but it's more of just the tone and the vibe of the story, the charisma of the leads. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. So we're pretty gushing about the American president.
Yeah, and I want to note this movie's dumb. Like,
for sure.
It sets up it's like it's a power fantasy playing in a head, which I think is part of what makes it a dad film. But we'll get into it. So like everything that like all the things that you want to happen, and it's not. It feels like a movie that would be in like a 30 Rock. You know what I mean? It feels like a parody of a movie.
The rural juror kind of.
Yeah. And I fucking love it. And it works.
It's perfect. There's, well, without further ado, let's enter our first segment where we just, the big segment, the big chunk, the chunker, the dad bod of the episode.
Yeah.
Let's get inside this dad. And we're just gonna actually just go through the movie and talk about scenes that really elucidate dadness.
I have a couple of broad dad strokes. Once again, Aaron Sorkin, directed by Rob Reiner, dad film all the way. Baseline level of dad film. Two things I want to know about the entire plot is we're exploring a romantic comedy. How do you make that a dad situation? Well, you need one of them to bomb stuff. You need political intrigue. You need Martin Sheen. Like Martin Sheen's here doing politicking. You need like it's the equivalent of taking a dog's medicine and wrapping it in bacon. where it's like we need to feed you a romantic story, but we need to give it to dads. How do we do that? You know, we make one of them is the president. You know, and again, he's like playing pool with Martin Sheen. They're talking about bombing another country.
Just so it's clear, Martin Sheen's the bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's the bacon.
He's what you were
and Michael
around
Douglas.
the
whole plot.
So that we can enjoy what we're like, because dads are like, what is this, a chick flick? What is Annette Bening? I mean, she's hot, but like,
she
what
is
are we
very
doing?
hot.
It's like, and then Martin Sheen, and we're like, oh, okay, now I see the point of this movie.
Right, exactly.
So great. Yeah.
The other big daddy detail throughout, because I was calling this out in the notes, and I realized I should just say this out front. This movie is about romanticizing a workaholic. Huge dad energy of that.
That's huge dad energy.
Yeah.
I have a lot on that. There's so many
the
scenes that really talk about that.
Right. So many scenes end with Michael Douglas going, I got to cut this short. I got to go to work. And her being like, oh, I love you. Because he's the president. And so to a workaholic dad, it's like, that's right. You respect that I have to work. Damn it.
That's right. Work is important.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I made a note at one point that I think that all, except for maybe one, every kiss between Michael Douglas and Annette Bening is interrupted.
Yep.
And that's exactly, it says it all, right?
Yeah, it's part of the dynamic. It's the fish out of water romantic comedy where it's like, you know, isn't there a movie where someone like dates a princess? I feel like that's maybe several movies. It's that idea is he's the princess. He's the big important person whose life is he's never alone. He's always hustling and bustling. And like that's part of the romance, which is like they're constantly surrounded by activity and they're just trying to carve out a romance. But what it also says is like, yeah, he's a workaholic and, you know, she has to accept that. I mean, because they're creating a scenario where it is acceptable. He's the president. Like if you're dating the president, you would accept this. It's not, you know, it's not dickish of him to have to work under these circumstances.
That's right. And because that, we'll talk about exactly how the deconstruction of this movie really shows you how unequal and how Sorkin, it's male facing. It's everything is surrounding around the male fantasy.
Right.
There are bits of female fantasy in it, but like it's mostly to placate the American president.
Yes.
And the movie I wanted to point out starts with basically the West Wing intro.
Yes.
The music, and it pans over faces and busts of dead presidents.
It blasts you with reference.
I just want to point out it's dead presidents, and then it's horses, and it's clocks.
and old books, yes. It's all the dad shit. It's a bunch of white monsters and fucking just... and there's an American flag as well. Compare this to like the opening of The Judge, because that was another one. It was like montage of reverence and history.
Just love that traditionalism.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, Jesus Christ. And you mentioned that, I just want to unpack a little bit. You mentioned, and this was news to me because you brought this trivia to me maybe a year or two ago, and I had just forgotten about it. But it was when you told me it, I was like, I forgot about how true it is when you watch it. Aaron Sorkin did crack while writing this.
Not a joke. In an interview, he said he was in a Four Seasons hotel and just smoking crack. And writing this movie, and it's probably my favorite thing he's ever done.
It's so good,
and like I don't want to contribute to someone's addiction.
No,
all I'm saying is that maybe the crack helped.
Aaron Sorkin, yeah, and it's full Sorkinisms, and you don't really feel the crackiness of it. I guess
you don't feel the crack.
You don't feel the crack, but the thing is, Sorkin is kind of crack when you think about it. I mean, when he's normally like for example. After the movie does its credits, it starts with a walk and talk, and it's all the bustle, as you said. Michael Douglas is I'm tired of this shit president. You know,
it'd be
he's
amazing,
just a normal...
by the way, if he kept smoking crack or asking about crack in the movie.
In the movie, yeah. That was the first draft, and they had to cut it out.
But the walk and talk, he's getting a fish. Very dad. Very dad.
Very dad. And he's just a normal working president at this point. Like, he's so comfortable in the role of president.
Right.
And everyone orbits him as he firmly walks, knowing everyone's name. And I think the goal is that all men want to be him, right? This is what we're doing from the get-go.
Also, he's the daddy. All the kids
daddy.
following him like baby ducklings.
America's
squawking
dad.
along. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what we want our life to be like. We want someone to get flowers for people.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be able to order that, delegate it,
Yeah.
be captain of the ship.
He knows everybody's name. Good morning, Charlie, he says to the gardener. He knows everybody's fucking name. He's a meta dad in that he's dad of the country, then he's dad of the office. Like, that's part of it. And then we also learn that he has a dead wife.
He's got a dead wife and a daughter.
Yep.
Guess what? Ding, ding, ding.
A clever
Dad
daughter.
movie.
A clever daughter, just like in fucking The Judge. And then, just like in The Judge, women are in peril because his wife is no more. She died before the movie
There's a tragedy
began.
at the center before or during the inciting incident. That's something we're learning about dad films. And guess what, Dave? He forgot to sign the permission slip for her class.
Yeah, he's a good dad. He just doesn't understand the little things.
The little things are
Just like The Judge.
Yep, it's right back to making deals and solving America. But when it comes to his daughter, he needs a little help, you know?
Yeah, but
He
she
just
loves
needs
him
a
and he
little-
loves her.
Of course, they're perfect. And then, so the movie basically kind of gives us this pastiche. And then we get, like, the stakes of his political future, which is that they introduce this crime bill. And it's a gun control bill that's soft on guns. And Michael J. Fox is there, who is, like, I believe a speechwriter. And he's just like, I don't like this, and I'm going to be the moral center, and I'm going to tell you, like, what... Michael J. Fox's character is essentially, this is who I know you are,
It's
deep
weird.
down.
He's like the scummy political guy who is also really concerned about the moral heart of
And fabric of everything.
Which is like it's a weird idea, but it works because it's Michael J. Fox and he's making it work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
he
for
says
sure.
about the crime bill, he wants to win it by a couple of touchdowns because, dads, and they watch and they go, oh, touchdowns. Yes, I understand now. Because the idea is he really wants, it's an election year. And so he's concerned about, he wants to show that he can fucking be a president. And Michael J. Fox is like, yes, but we should really also like try to do good things, right? Not just try to win.
Yeah, it's not about winning the one. That's like kind of the crux of it. It's fighting the fight. They say it literally at one point in Act 3. It's fighting the battles you know you can win versus fighting the battles that you have to fight.
Yes.
Which is so very like liberal. It's like the super liberal, like centrist kind of viewpoint of America.
This is the Democrat dad film. Like this is the equivalent of like a Clint Eastwood film for the right. Like this is for liberal dads. I imagine it's Sorkin after all.
I imagine it was designed for Ed Begley Jr. That's what I imagine. We get a scene where we see John Mahoney's there, who's Frasier's dad. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, because it's a dad film.
And this is kind of the Annette Bening arc start, where we get the Global Defense Council. That's the lobby, which is really confusing. And I wonder if this is an element of crack, or I don't understand how lobbies work. But they're called the Global Defense Council, but they're an environmental lobby.
Well, they're defending the globe from climate change.
Climate change, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
So the
I actually do. So I think a lot of lobbyist groups have sneaky names.
That's probably true.
Yeah, this is a weird one. But yeah, the idea is it's basically the crime bill versus an environmental bill, right?
Exactly. He's got both of them, and they're both kind of useless. But like the GDC, the Global Defense Council, doesn't like it because they want it to be more, aggressive, and they're scared that since the American president is popular, that if the bill passes anyway, they're going to look useless and like kind of moot in the conversation.
The bill they're pushing is for 20% reductions. Michael Douglas is going to push a 10% reduction and is basically saying you can either support this or not. If you don't support it, then it like ruins your pull around Washington, right?
Yeah.
If it gets passed. And
That's
they bring in a lobbyist. I think they refer to her as like a bulldog, something like that. Pit bull. Annette Bening, who shows up at the White House and in a very fucking Sorkin way has nothing but reverence for the White House itself. She is wowed by the White House. Wowed. And the security guard knows Frank Capra.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I love in Sorkin films. That it's like, bet you didn't assume that you have a character that assumes that someone like a security guard wouldn't know a reference, and then the security guard comes back with like full of references.
Yeah,
of course I
do.
know that. And that's a very Sorkin thing.
It's very Sorkin because I would argue Sorkin thinks that his audience also doesn't think that this shitty little lower class security guard wouldn't know Frank Capra.
Right.
Like that's the movie treats it of like, oh wow, he does know. And it's like, why wouldn't he know? He works at the fucking White House. Of course he knows.
Also, he could be into movies. I don't know. People like different stuff. Why are you assuming anything? You weirdo. But yeah, that's right.
But again, reverence. White House. The White House is a temple in this.
She is almost like fawning over the fact that she's there, which gives us this in where it's like, you know, that she's going to be hot for the president. That's like what this is all setting it up, right? But we can't introduce a character exactly like this. This is a romance film. So she is that pit bull, and she's like, look, you're nerfing this environmental bill. She claps back, you know, at the chief of staff, Martin Sheen. And then several times this happens in the movie.
Yes.
Douglas president sneaks into the room. Like he sneaks into the room and overhears something that someone doesn't wish for him to hear.
Right. It's wild that it keeps happening because it's one of those things that you bring out once. But I think this is such a dad fantasy that they had to do it multiple times, which is the idea of having the social upper hand, because it's the do you know who I am moment. And it's every dad's fantasy is like to have this moment, right? Is
to have someone embarrassed and kind of under your thumb for just a second.
Yes, because of they misjudged the situation.
Because it also causes flirty. It's an easy access to flirt. It's like it makes you look like you're like, oh, I'm not going to be mean about it. I'm not going to make you squirm.
Right.
So that shows how good of a person I am.
Right. So she talks trash, not knowing he's right behind her. And then, of course, he speaks up. And she's like, oh, my God, it's the president. I'm so sorry. And I fucking love it. And
I
it
fucking
happens,
love it.
Should we note when we can get to it when it happens again later.
Yeah, we'll talk about when we were there.
And then what I would argue, terrifying. This movie's terrifying, by the way, if you imagine her not being attracted to him. This opening, because then he's like, he like says a few things and he leaves, and then he's like, Sydney, can you join me in the rec room, which is what he calls the Oval Office, we learned.
Or that's the Oval Office.
And he gets her alone and like debates this bill with her.
And it's important also that he's like, all right, I'll meet you in the rec room in a second. And I think it's important to note that she goes through and she goes, oh, shit, I'm in the Oval Office. And then he pops out of a completely different door like a fucking magician, because once again,
he's running.
That's the thing, is that the way you and I have described like horror movies is that the monster controls the environment.
Right.
It's important that Douglas President controls this environment.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a horror movie when you think about it.
Oh, yeah. Again, any romantic comedy, if you imagine the woman not being into it, suddenly gets a lot more sinister. Because he's getting her alone. He makes a deal with her and basically says, if you can get all the votes, then we'll endorse it. Because he doesn't think she can get the votes. So that's what's being set up here.
Yeah,
that's the business. But then he just like tries to ask her out.
Yeah, he flirts with her. And she doesn't get it.
Right.
She doesn't register.
Nor should she.
No.
And then she tells him off, and guess what she does? He says something like, you can't do that, Sydney. And she's like, oh, I think I can. He's like, no. And she says, who's going to stop me? And he's like, the Secret Service for once. You're going out the wrong door. And she has to do the fucking same bit again where she loses steam and goes, I'm so sorry.
Yep. This is so embarrassing for me. And I think there's something about dads trying, like once again, we're talking about like just ways in which dads feel that they're entitled to be cute.
Yeah.
Because dads don't feel that they can just be cute. There has to be a certain circumstance in which they're allowed to be playful.
Right. This is
one of them.
The nerfing of a formidable woman, kind of, where it's like she's a political lobbyist. She is chewing him out, but she's so awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, sure, man. I mean, I have to know. I continue to love this. Watching
No, this is every episode.
I know
we always are
doing.
like, this is so stupid.
Yeah.
We'll watch it anytime.
Yes.
It's also something we like. God, I'm so tired of the trope of like awkward woman or like she like slips and falls. You remember Evolution, the movie Evolution?
According to behind the scenes of that, and this is very telling, and this is like story of women in comedy. That was Julianne Moore's idea to be clumsy because they didn't give her anything to be funny about. Otherwise.
That's how it works. Yep. That's how it fucking works.
Yeah.
And it's a goddamn tragedy.
You can see that where she's like, all right, I guess I have to say these lines, so I can't make the lines funnier. So can I like fall down a bunch? That doesn't add more lines. They're
comedy,
like, sure.
right? You're like, well, you're not really a super comedian, so I guess that's probably why you went there.
Right.
You know?
She's not. She might not be.
She's
funny,
like trying. But it's not her fault. Everyone else has writers who are really good at
They
this.
should have given her lines that were funny.
Yeah, what the fuck? Anyway, enough about Evolution. Not quite a dad film, but definitely. Well, actually, just not the one on this podcast.
Yeah.
Here, there's we get another scene, which I do want to talk about Douglas President and Martin Sheen playing pool, but before that, I want to reference a scene that we didn't cover. Which there's two important things, which is that it was there's a scene with Martin Sheen and Douglas President where they're walking. It's like at the end of the first day. And two things that I think are important is that earlier in the day there was a remark about him being a widow. Michael Douglas, and that made him sullen and introspective. So I think that's only important is just that he's thinking about fucking again, and then Sidney Ellen Wade, played by Annette Bening, arrives. But the second important thing I think for the dad tropism is that there's a back and forth where Douglas President asks Sheen to just call him Andy, which is something he does with a lot of people because he's folksy and he's a folksy president. He's just call me Andy when we're, off, work.
Yeah, but he has too much reverence.
He has too much reverence for the office. So he keeps calling him, sure thing, will do, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
It's like, So anyway, they're playing pool in this next scene, and he mentions attempting to date Annette Bening, and Sheen says that he... I love that the initial reaction of Martin Sheen is, we can just get some floozies over
he's
here.
like, if you want a woman, we can get... And he's like, what? I also love, it's very dad. They're playing pool. He's a widower, so he gets to.
He gets to.
But I don't know if you're going to shout out what I would consider to be one of the wildest quotes of this movie.
Hit me with it, Dave.
Okay, because they're talking... So basically, he's talking about the optics, right? And he goes... like, other presidents dated, and he's like, not on television they didn't.
Right.
And he says, you said it 1,000,000 times. This country, like in modern day, this country does not elect a man in a wheelchair. To which I wrote, you say that 1,000,000 times?
Yeah.
Why does Michael Douglas keep saying that? What a weird, specific thing to keep saying. Yeah, like, does he get a few drinks in him and he reverts back to the same rambling thing about
like,
how the country would never elect a guy in a wheelchair? What an oddly specific thing.
Hey, Don't question dad, Dave.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole point is that the whole dating thing will hit his popularity. So we know where this is going, because people won't know what to think about him dating again, because his wife has only been dead for like a year or something.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, more than a year, but yeah.
Well, no, because the first time they ran, so it's got to be at least 3 years, because he ran as a widower.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. That's right. So yeah, after the pool scene, we begin the sequences of the movie, the fun and games sequences, I guess, where they start courting, I guess is the word I use, because I have reverence for presidents, you know?
Yes. And
it's
there's
fancy.
there's a lot of like, how did you get this number? I don't know, the FBI.
The FBI, yeah.
There's, of course, when he calls her the first time, she thinks he's a prank call, so we get the exact same beat where she says, oh, ha ha, yeah, okay, president, you have a nice ass or whatever. Yeah. And of course, she has to once again be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did this. I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry, Your Majesty." And the important part of the movie is that she doesn't really understand yet quite what this is, which I thought it's an interesting artifact in the movie, because it's not really a date to her.
I get it.
Annette Bening's performance alludes that she does kind of get it.
Well, he says, like, do you want to go to this? And she's like, I'd be honored to represent. And it's like, yeah, if Biden called me and was like, you want to go to this event, I wouldn't assume he's trying to fuck me.
Right, not necessarily. So, yeah, I think her performance alludes to her knowing kind of what this all is, but the script really plays her not knowing. And I think that's Sorkin making it seem like she's clueless, because that's cute to him.
Right. But I do understand it. I understand that you wouldn't assume because she finally asked him, like, how have you done this before? And he's like, no. And that's, I think, when it's supposed to dawn on her of like, oh, okay.
This is a thing.
The president's he's trying to bone me. Okay.
Yep. And it's immediately matched by like Douglas president's cluelessness as well. He hasn't done this for such a long time. In fact, he needs to get advice from his daughter. She ties his bow tie, and we have a reference to his dead wife again, because like, where'd you learn that? And he's like, Mom. And it's like, oh yeah.
No, first she says nobody, and he has to be like, did Mom teach you that? And I'm like, I don't know why she would lie.
That's even better. Yeah. And so they go to a ball, because that's the first date. And we get this line that I love.
We have to meet the stupid president of France, too. They go
president of France or some shit, yeah. And there's this line that I love, because it comes out of nowhere from I think it's Martin Sheen's wife. But she's just, apropos of nothing, she's just like, they're talking about how they met and how, like, you know, like there was some small stakes dunks on the president coming from Annette Bening. And this woman says, men like being insulted by women. It makes them feel loved.
Right.
That's just Sorkin coming right off the page.
I also, yes. I want her to add, like, AJ has a humiliation fetish, you know.
Yeah. His kink is for me to, like, yell out obscenities at him.
Yeah. I yell at him in public, and then we go home and I punish his penis.
Yeah. Step on his balls. And so, yeah, there's also a moment. So the whole point of this sequence is that it's overwhelming for Annette Bening, because photos are being taken at all the pageantry of, the office is there.
Right.
It's a fucking ball at the White House. But
and then, of course, the stupid president of France at the ball isn't having fun, and she speaks French, because the movie's like, ooh, it's once again like the fetish of being underestimated and impressing others, where it's like, oh my God, she speaks French.
She's so perfect.
She's the perfect, dad. She's the perfect dad wife. She's
dad
Sorkin woman, because she also is underestimated.
Yeah, exactly. I like that at one point, at the suggestion of his daughter, he says to Annette Bening, nice shoes, by the way, because that's something that you tell to women to let them feel good about themselves. And Annette Bening gives this look like, what the fuck?
Right.
Like, she's so overwhelmed, and that's how they play it. But it's also like, how does this guy not know that this is weird as fuck?
Right.
And it gets weirder.
I will say, not completely wrong. So what the actual rule is, I do believe, women listening could disagree with me, obviously, and this isn't just compliments from it's compliments to anybody, any person.
Sure. Yeah.
Compliment a choice, not.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is, say nice haircut. Say I like your shirt. Don't say I like your skin or I like the figure of your body. Something
A
they have no
property of
control. Yes,
physical
compliment
property.
a decision that reflects their personality, as opposed to a physical attribute they have no control over.
I
That's all.
also like the kind of adage that compliment, for people really to understand, if you want someone to really feel complimented, compliment the motivation, not the result.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, you were doing this and I see it, as opposed to you look nice in that dress.
Unless the result is a disaster.
That
like
also compliment that. Your disaster is fantastic.
if they're like bowling and they accidentally like hit a child with the bowling ball, don't be like, well, I liked the effort. Just quietly get out of the bowling alley, you know?
Yeah. But the night gets weirder because he asks Benning to dance in front of everyone, which is, that's a nightmare. And when she says yes, she says, yes, sir. I just want that to be known.
So there's a dynamic here I want to talk about throughout the whole, which I think is good Sorkin, which is whether or not she's able to let her guard down. Because he asks her to dance and she first says, yeah, I guess. And then she goes, I mean, yes, of course.
Yes, of course.
And so and this is a point of contention. There is a moment where she sees him as a person. And so the realization is she doesn't really want to dance that much. She's like, sure, I guess. And they, this is skipping ahead a little, but a lot of their courtship is a series of airplane jokes. And what I mean by that is, like the cockpit. What is it?
Yes.
It's a little room that has the pilots in it, but that's not important right now. So like, for example,
That's right.
he's like, take off your coat. And she's like, Mr. President, this isn't going to work. And he goes, sure, it will. You just unbutton the buttons. Right.
Right. It's like, oh, we're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make him. That's a Sorkin deal.
He does it to her like 6 fucking times. And it's the same gag. And then, spoilers, they have sex. And he has to leave suddenly. And he says to her, well, we'll do it better next time. And she says, I thought we did it pretty good this time. The power has switched.
Claps back.
Yeah,
Yep,
she's now doing the dad joke to her. And you will notice this is a dad joke. This is their relationship.
It is literally a dad joke.
The balance is based off a dad joke. Every joke from Airplane is a dad joke, obviously. And so, yeah, they're
fantastic.
Their power dynamic is based on a dad joke.
No, that's a great observation.
Yeah.
And it's Sorkin's. Oh, it's Sorkin's. It's just bread and butter, baby.
Right.
Yeah. And I love that while they're dancing, it cuts to Dreyfus and we get our, we're thoroughly in the second act at this point, and we get the introduction of like a villain because Dreyfus is the Republican competition.
Right. He like smiles, right?
He wrings his hands and he's basically like, I'll crucify you, Mr. President.
Yeah. How amazing would this film be if we learn his motivation is just he's also wants to get set up with someone?
Yeah, he's just lonely as well. And he's just jealous. Yeah. I also think that his performance is real Dick Cheney.
Yes. This is pre-Dick Cheney though.
It's pre-Dick Cheney, but Dick Cheney was around, but it's like that whole mob of undesirables.
Didn't he play in that stupid movie American Dreams with a Z? Didn't he play Dick
Jesus
Cheney?
Christ. Maybe. I think so.
I'm looking it up right now. That 2006 just embarrassing fucking movie.
What a pull.
I don't, because they're not like one-to-one, like the names are different. That movie was just really embarrassing liberal garbage from what I remember. It was just like that really like wish fulfillment. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of Willem Dafoe actually playing the chief of staff.
God, perfect.
Yeah.
American Dreams with a Z. Check it out.
That was, I would talk hours about that stupid fucking movie.
I also like that. So she leaves for the date, and this might just be me and how out of touch I am with women's clothes, but I like that if you date the president it turns you into an old lady. Like when she's
Yes.
driving home, she's wearing like I don't know
She
I don't know what
she
you call it.
arrives in it too. She's dressed
It's-
like one of the weird mystical women in Dune. Like
Yes.
she's got like this
It's
robe,
a
this
blanket
flowy
that
robe
old
over
women
her.
and first ladies wear, right? Like
Yeah,
a
it's
shawl,
very
a shawl?
classy.
Like a shoal? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
a full
something
body
like
shoal
that.
or something like. Anyway, he does more everyday guy stuff. Douglas President tries to order flowers, but he can't because he has to have a credit card and he doesn't have that, so he has to have someone actually do that thing for him.
He's also
which
a real
is-
fucking nerd, which of
He's
course,
such a
as the
nerd.
president, he would be, because he's like, "What's the Virginia flower?" And he wants to give her a nerd flower.
Mm-hmm. And we get our secondary conflict, or actually it's the main conflict really of the tale, which is Benning gets flack from Fraser's dad for dating the president because it just doesn't look good. Everything's about optics and politics is about perception. And quote, I hired a pit bull and I got a prom queen, which is obviously Benning goes like, get the fuck out of here.
Right,
Like
and
you have no business in my life. And he's like, no, it's politics. Everything is business.
The most Sorkin line where she goes, "That's unfair," and he goes, "It's incredibly unfair."
Yeah, he's like, I know it's unfair, but it's the way the world is. And so the movie basically becomes everyone else in the movie saying that this relationship is a problem, a real Romeo and Juliet situation.
Yeah.
But the two are just so taken with each other that they stay together. And I want to point out that the dad role here is to always push through and ignore the problem. Benning tries to tell him multiple times that her work is becoming a big issue with the relationship, and he's just like, let's go get dinner.
Yes.
You know?
And meanwhile, it's also the Republicans are smoking cigars and drinking scotch, as a Sorkin imagines they do. And as I guess Ben Shapiro also imagines they do.
Yes.
And they're like, ha ha ha, the president's got a girlfriend. And so they're going to use this against him. And everybody's sort of saying, what's his name? Bob Rumson?
Yeah.
Which feels like a
it's-
Rumsfeld thing.
Yeah, exactly. Bob Rumson.
And so everybody starts telling Michael Douglas, you have to respond to these character attacks. And he's too serious and has too much reverence to respond.
It's reverence, but it's also like when you hold this office, you don't play in the mud with that kind of suggestion.
Right.
My character is because of my principles and my actions, sir, not because of some, person who's just making things up.
Right, and it's like Sorkin fighting his own reverence because, like, this movie is a fantasy, right? That's why I love it.
Yeah,
I'm a pretty left-leaning person. I like the idea that this is how the country is supposed to work, but, it isn't.
Yeah, and it's the victory of civility. It's like how things should work in a democracy, which is idealist and fantastic in every sense of those words. Their first kiss is interrupted by a call from the sit room, which kind of is in tone with what we're just discussing. Because I think dads everywhere wish that their job was respected so much that they could just eject from any situation if needs be.
That's what
I
it is. They
can't
kiss,
do
and then
this.
he doesn't have to stick around and talk
I
to her
have
some
to
more.
run a war.
Yeah.
Just fuck off. I
And he
I
has to
want that. I want to be able to say the thing I need to do right now is so important
Yep.
that you understand, don't you? And
Yep.
all of my friends are like, yeah, we understand.
Right, he's got to
And
go
salute
bomb a
me.
country, and again, they're doing it's a straw man thing where it's like, what if I was the president? You would respect my job, and it's like, no, you work at fucking Foot Locker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're a manager. Like you don't have to run off every fucking time.
You're a fucking podcaster.
Right. It's that's what it is. It's for all the daddies watching to be like, that's right. It's important what I do.
Because it puts food on the table, and also, it's a valuable part of society, and I'm respected.
When I
That's all we
go
want.
out at night, that's a business meeting. It's business. We're discussing business at the bar.
At the bar.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's the
not
best
because
case
I'm
scenario of
sad.
this. Like he has to go. They're having a war. He has to fucking go.
He has to go, and it's true. In the same vein, after he kind of makes a decision, and because everyone's saying like, you're not a military president, you never served and stuff like that. That's some of the Bob Rumson's lobbying attacks at him. He's like, well, attack. He's like, he becomes a strong, and we see.
But he's
him,
sad about it.
But he's sad about it, and that's the thing. That's a very Sorkin thing. It's also a very Dad thing, which is because everyone talks immediately, like even his close circle of acolytes are all people talking about the optics of these decisions, but Douglas president is aggrieved by the fact that he just ordered the death of some janitor who didn't know that he's going to die today because I made a decision an hour ago to bomb that building. Yeah,
it's the most Sorkin moment, which is that it is such fantasy where it's that I guarantee every president from Biden to whoever the first one is, I can't look it up. Every single one, if they're in this situation, they'd be like, attack. Also, can I watch a video of it? Do you have a helmet I could wear while I watch? Yeah. Like that's the truth. Is like they do this thing where he's like, they forced my hand and I am mourning the death of this janitor whose death I have ordered. And he gives a big speech about it, and it's just num 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 num. It's so Sorkin.
It's also how I think a lot of people deal with cost. When they make a decision that it like fucks someone over, they have to justify it to themselves to sleep. Right. I think this is a form of justification. Whether or not you agree that it's a valid one, that's not my business, but it's definitely coming from this place where people who do make these rough decisions and, who are usually dads,
such
that's
a dad
just
moment. Yeah.
It's just a very dad way of approaching it because it's kind of a straw man argument. It's not really valid in terms of like, well, you still did the attack, but you can feel bad about it. That doesn't mean really that it's justifiable because you feel bad.
Right.
But in the same instance, here we are, and it's a good scene more or less. There's a scene where Benning is second guessing the relationship while she's packing up boxes. And I wrote this down because the phone rings and she worriedly looks at it and says, it's him.
Yeah. And this is where it could be a horror movie. Because imagine imagine if she had went to the dinner to be polite. Yes. And still wasn't attracted to him. And then he like kissed her and she didn't know how to get out of it. Like you can see yourself being kind of frozen, like Joe Biden could take me into the dish room and give me a tender kiss. And then he runs away before I can say, listen, man, this is not
cool
for me.
And even when I do broach the topic, he's like, hey, let's talk about something else.
Right. And then he starts calling me and it's like, fuck.
This is all very troubling.
Yeah. So like, it's really convenient that she's into it. I'm sure he would back off if she wasn't. But the point being that there's a certain amount of social pressure here.
Right. It's all because that's kind of how we like our flirting in movies is that it's kind of like it's the will they won't they kind of thing. It's like, I'm being coy all the time on both sides. It's just funny because they're both max fuckable. So you know, we all want it to happen. And that's us being the freaks. I mean, the audience,
Yeah.
So we're really the ones to blame. And Sorkin for giving us what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, though, she comes at him hard about ending the relationship because he legit because things are really coming to a head and things are getting out of control. And this is before we really get the reveal of the flag burning stuff, but he legit gaslights her in this sequence where he says call me Andy again, and which means I'm an everyday guy, but then she's like, well, I don't know about you can't get away with just treating me in this fashion. And then he's like, you raise your voice to the president?
Right.
So he's playing both sides of I'm the president and I'm just an average guy.
Right. And what he's trying to do is set up the idea of you need to stop thinking of me as the president.
Right.
And he should be like, it's good. Thank you. Raise your voice to the president. But he teases her about it. And it's like, isn't that what you want?
Yeah, and I know it's all playful and fun, and this isn't really a problem in an actual romantic setting, but it does indicate that he doesn't take her issue seriously.
Right.
And he's always confident that he'll get what he wants,
Yeah.
which is Annette Bening in a dress shirt and nothing else, and suddenly he has that.
what
And
we
I
all
love
want.
this trope. He immediately becomes a bumbling little boy.
Of course he
Because-
does.
Yeah, because that's how we deal with sex in this country. Is like men are like, I'm in control, and then the second that a woman is suddenly a little too sexy, they're like,
Oh no! And Michael Douglas is killing it. He says, like, you're not nervous? And she's like, no. And he's like, my nervousness exists on several levels. And then he starts over talking. I want to say this is this is a romantic film, right? And again, wrapping it in bacon, serving it to a dad. They need them to have a romantic sex scene. How do you get there? How do you get to tender ass sex? Easy. You do sex to prove a point. Fight sex. Because the idea is he says to her,
sex.
like, you're nervous because, like, he says, like, are you attracted to me? And he's like, I bet all the other first ladies weren't nervous about having sex with their husbands because they knew them before they were president. And the problem is you're nervous because you'll never stop thinking of me as the president. And she's like, oh, yeah? And she's like, well, hold on. I got to go take a dump. And she goes into the bathroom and he's like ranting about like, we're going to take it slow. And one day you won't think of me as the president. And then she comes out wearing only his shirt. And so it's to prove a fuck point where she's like, oh no, I'm gonna fuck you sideways.
I'm gonna fuck you right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just wanted to point out, I don't know if you would wrote it down or not, but like because like most sex scenes do, it just kind of crossfades into oblivion.
Yes.
And it says like and ... and then they had sex. But before they fuck, just note that the last thing scripted and said in the scene is ... if Eisenhower were here. Because he's like bumbling and making a point about
It's
like
so good.
yeah, it's just so fucking good.
She also seems to be checking the durability of the bed, so that shit got rough.
That shit got real rough.
Yeah. But yeah, so they needed this to happen, but they needed it. And of course it puts Michael Douglas in a way like, see, he didn't coerce her. She's, like she's the one in charge.
She's the instigator.
And if you remember, the judge sort of has that as well, where it's like
Vera Farmiga's in
you
charge.
think about the president having sex with a lobbyist. We don't even have to imagine this. There has been situations where a president has engaged in sexual intercourse or sexual activity with somebody who perhaps they shouldn't have. Not naming any names. But
I don't know.
There's
who you
really
could
just
be
the one,
talking about.
or the one recently, and so like, normally you realize like, okay, they're using their position of power to kind of, like, even if it's consensual, it's still like really fucked up. And in this situation, so they have to make it so that it's like it's super Annette Bening's idea.
Yes,
and of
because
course,
otherwise it's an issue.
Yeah, Michael Douglas is a real snack, and he like in this situation, it is in fact a consensual, non-problematic sex scene, but they have to build this situation for it to be that way.
Right. Otherwise, it would be an issue.
Yeah,
and get in the way of what they want to do. And I want to talk about the next morning. Because there's this kerfuffle over, like, she's trying to get it out early because the press, seeing Benning spending the night, would be an issue. So there's a kerfuffle, and she left her car there. So the problem is that the press already know that she stayed the night, so they're already camped out.
Yeah,
and several staff walk in, like Sheen and Michael J. Fox, and they arrive in the bedroom of Douglas President, and I could not help but think about how Sheen and Michael J. Fox are all smelling last night's hot sex in the cold air of the morning.
Yeah.
And like
They're like, oh,
way
so that's what the
Douglas-
president's jizz looks like. I can see it right there on the bed.
The way that Douglas walks around that room is like he knows that they smell it too, because he's like stretching and tying his
"Take it in, boys."
bathrobe and smiling, and the smell of the room is just probably filthy.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all thinking about it.
Oh, 100%.
And he wants everyone to smell him.
I need to also do another bacon analogy here.
Hit me with the bacon.
Romantic comedies tend to have a chorus. And what I mean by that
Yes.
is there's always the funny friends that because it is a romantic comedy, the entire plot is around a coupling of two individuals. That means all the other side characters have to have something to say about it. They have to react to it. They have to go, oh my God. You know, like when Anastasia Steele is dating Christian Grey, people have to go like, oh my God, him? Wow. And so they need the equivalent of that in this, and that is the president's aides. All have to be squabbling around it, going, oh my goodness, you guys slept together. But they can't just be like drinking mimosas and gushing over it. So they create a political intrigue version, which is the press is outside. We have to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. And we get an immediate response from our president, who's the most confident he's ever been.
Yep.
Because he's fresh from that sex.
Yeah.
And he tells Annette Bening, you're gonna see reporters and photographers every day. This is what you're gonna do. You know, and he's back in control. Daddy has control of it all.
And just so the CIA has to listen to this, if I was gonna try to attack the president or kill the president, you'd think if the president had a girlfriend that was just walking around, that would be a big target for kidnapping or other things.
That's
and
right.
He's just sort of like, good luck to her.
Yeah, he's just like,
he's just like,
go
yeah,
with
you're going to
God.
be flooded with reporters.
This is your deal
Your
now.
life will never be the same. We're not going to give you any protection.
I'm once again going to act like there's no special circumstances with the situation, the fact that I am president.
Right.
And then we get kind of like what propels us into the big act 3, which is there's a news story over a montage of the relationship developing, which is so great. It's like last night, Sidney Allen Wade stayed over at the president's personal residence. I know it's not that far-fetched to have like presidential gossip, but
this
it's
is
just
the
funny
90s when a president had a similar treatment.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But that was also infidelity and like there was skin in the game for a lot of people in America. This is just a dating is happening. Anyway, it's not that far-fetched. It's just funny that barely anyone knows about it yet. But we get Dreyfus finding an old college photo of Bening burning a flag.
Yes.
So now we have a conflict between, and this is the central dad conflict. We get a conflict between
the CDC,
the love of a woman, and America.
Yep.
So as we know, this must be solved. In Dad's house, wife and country cannot be at odds. So we have this momentary kind of hesitance about like, is she an American? That's obviously what Rumson Dreyfus is going to, take this and use it as ammunition. We're not super worried about the relationship, but it's just one more thing on top of everything else where it's like, okay, now this is going to be even spin his, numbers out of control, fuck her life up. Like it's not necessarily good. Is it worth it? Is it worth it for us to be together? Right. And that's like like in most romance films, it's the last kind of straw, or it's building up and planting what will be the last straw for the big moment of redemption. But yeah. And we get another scene where Douglas President has to break off like a date with Annette Bening, and he sees the flower shop girl that he called before. And I just wanted to mention this because as he walks in, the lady working there, like at the counter, passes out from his presence.
Right.
Do you think that if you ever were to see Biden walking around
much
in real life, you would pass out, Dave?
So much reverence.
It's so good.
No, I wouldn't. I was once for the FBI and CIA. I was once about 20 feet away from Obama once, and I didn't pass out.
You didn't pass out. Good
Nope.
for you. I think I would just pass out.
Sorry, this is cool. I was 20 feet above him.
Ooh, even better.
Yep. Not going to
So you're
explain
looking
further.
down at his. You're gonna look down at his head.
Directly above him. Yeah.
Oh, that's the best angle to see a president.
You know what?
beneath
You know what's wild? It was
What's
me
wild?
and Robert Evans. We're
That's
20 feet
worse.
directly above the
I don't want
Obama,
to
the
know
president of the
anymore the
United
story.
States of
I
America.
know that our audience really wants to know the story. I'm not going to be an investigative journalist. I'm not going to ask any
Okay.
questions about it. And that's it. That's that.
Yeah.
So,
Point is, we didn't faint.
yeah. Point is, you were cool cats.
Yep.
But there's another scene I wanted to point out that Benning and Douglas President are on the couch and they're watching TV. And there's a news story about how great the president's health is.
Yes.
He's so strong and
And he's
virile.
like, nah, tell me about the game.
Tell me
Because
about the
not the
game.
movie, The Game, starring Michael Douglas, but the sports game, because he's a dad. He likes sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In an interesting turn of events, Benning actually mentions in one scene, everyone tries to turn a deaf ear to this like publicity and optics shit about our relationship, but you ignore it. So she actually points out
Right.
the thing that is the problem.
Because they start, Rumsfeld, or whatever his fucking name is,
Yeah,
starts
yeah, yeah.
implying that she had traded sexual favors. And he's
Yes.
like, I can't respond to it. And it's like, motherfucker.
Really?
Like, I'm asking you as your girlfriend to respond to
to
it.
shut this motherfucker down. And
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not going to be a bully. But what I love about this, and it's both dadness, but probably just Sorkinness, it does immediately turn into how this is not about Annette Bening's character, but it's about the president. Even Annette Bening is like, how can you keep quiet while they destroy your legacy?
Right. This movie is called The American President.
Right, not the possible first lady.
Right.
To which he says, I don't have the luxury to lose my patience. In other words,
So
I'm
bad.
principled and everyone else can go fuck
Yep,
off.
he's such a daddy.
Right, which in turn is followed by Benning saying that, look, you know I love you, but maybe things would be better if I just disappeared for
Right.
a while. And his response to that is, I'd find you.
Yep.
I just think that is a back and forth. That
It's
is just-
wild.
It's so perfect. It's just like things are coming. Like no one is answering any questions. People are just saying crazy statements.
This was sort of changing the subject. Did we get to the softball guy? Speaking of crazy statements,
I don't think. No, we
there's
haven't
just
got-
one quick part where this fucking maniac is like takes the president aside and is complaining about women's softball
Yeah.
at
This is
a party.
the
and
holiday party.
it's just like it's just shoehorned in. I was just like, I want a movie about that fucking maniac.
Yeah, Title IX, dude.
Yeah.
I also love that at this party, there's just a shot of an open bowl of nog. Did you see that?
Yeah, nice.
Just just drinking some nog with the buddies. Just gross, just a weird choice, Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
So Annette Bening drops that she met with some senators at this party. She met with some senators earlier in the day, and they said the only thing that they hate worse than the crime bill is the environment bill, which Sheen lays out that if they can sacrifice the environment bill for the sake of the crime bill and get these 3 votes from these dudes, they can get the crime bill passed, no problem.
Right.
So we have this conflict between Douglas President's word to Annette Bening that he'd support the environment bill, but now the crime bill, which is like what he stakes his entire like State of the Union address on, is threatened by his and the fact that he's now, because of his relationship, his dwindling support numbers. So his political future can be solved by betraying her.
Right. She's lobbying so hard that her boyfriend president has to rat fuck her. Basically.
Yes.
She's going to get rat
She's so
fucked.
good.
And okay. So I understand where she's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I was also a lobbyist, I wouldn't tell my boyfriend president.
I wouldn't make this mistake.
I wouldn't tell her.
Because I'd
Tell
have the
him that.
foresight to know that this
She
is how
gets-
it works.
Yeah, spoiler, she gets mad at him and because she gets fired and it's like, yeah, you should have been fired. You told your boyfriend president, who you might not even keep a relationship with, for all you know, some really important political information that he can use to fucking rat fuck your company.
That's right.
That wasn't good. It's shitty for him to do it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's also shitty, but she should also be kind of mad at herself for doing that. That's all.
That's it's a good point to make. And so they go and do that basically. They basically rat fuck her, and there's a scene where Michael J. Fox makes an appeal to Douglas President.
Yeah, I would call this the climax of the Sorkin of it all.
Yes,
this is as far as Sorkin's concerned, this is the climax of the film.
Because it's the lead up to the big speech. It's the motivation for the victory.
Yeah.
And because it's all about building up exactly what your duties are and stepping up and saying something to fight back against Dreyfus, and he needs to save the crime bill and do all these things. So Michael J. Fox says, you have an obligation to rat fuck her. And there's this elaborate metaphor about people seeing a mirage, and when there's no water, they drink. They're thirsty, so they drink the sand
because they don't know the difference.
Which I don't even think is true. Like, this is not a good analogy, but like,
there's
the president also says back, I think that the American people are actually dumb, and it's not because they're thirsty. It's because they do what they're told, and they don't know the difference.
No, that's They don't know.
Yeah.
He says that. But you also miss, because this is through a haze of crack smoke. It's Aaron Sorkin just dumping the most Aaron Sorkin shit. They say the president doesn't answer to you, Lewis. And he goes, oh, yes, he does. I'm a citizen. This is my president.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many lines like that where it's like, oh, fuck yeah. It's like it's like a parody. It's like that Futurama with the Harold Zoid doing the like president movie.
Uh-huh.
It's all the cliches of a political thriller.
Beautiful. It's
fucking love it.
I just want it on repeat in my household.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we get the scene where Benning finds out that she got rat fucked, and there's obviously an argument and a blow up. And she says, she says, you didn't lose today. The environment lost is something. Oh, I'm sorry. He says
the environment gets screwed. Yeah, where I'm like, that's bleak.
That's not also that's not what she's saying. Yes, that's true. But I also lost today. Like, that's what it's not. They're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
But my favorite thing is her zinger that as she exits and like
this is
back all of her
I just
stuff.
want to set it up. This is the most Sorkin line that ever existed.
You didn't lose me today. You lost my vote.
Yep.
Again, nothing is bigger than The Office. Nothing. It's just
so money shot. Sorkin
just
money shot.
The flag waving and just everybody jerking off on the flag.
Yeah,
that's what this
because
is.
You can literally see this in a parody of someone saying like, "Mr. President, boyfriend, you didn't just lose me, you lost my vote." It's
President
perfect.
boyfriend. Yes.
Perfect. They should have called this President Boyfriend, by the way.
Yes.
It's a terrible title, but they should have done that.
So it's all boiling to a head for the State of the Union. Douglas has two lame bills. He isn't fighting people's distaste for his personal life. He's lashing out at Sheen, his best friend. These are all unhinged things.
Right. He has
the
a
situation
fight with
we're in.
AJ. I just want to know, he says about Bob Rumson, has he lied? Has he said anything? And it's like, yeah, actually, he said that she traded sexual favors for votes.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird that that's where he's coming from. But, yeah.
He didn't lie. But his point is that he's like, I can't fight this man. I can't say that he's wrong. It's beneath me. And he keeps beating this drum that you only fight the fights you win versus the fights that need fighting. So the president takes a solemn walk around the Oval Office.
I want to know, the fight ends with something that's kind of notable, is he says to AJ, like, if my wife had been alive, would I have won that election? And AJ says, I don't know, but I would have loved to have my friend back. And that's just a sweet moment. It kind of completes the wife arc, what has been hanging over him, this idea of like, did my wife's death get me the
It is
You know?
ruined by him immediately saying, like, but I wouldn't have been elected if I was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Because
No
he
wheelchairs.
He said it a million times.
Yeah.
But yeah, he walks around because Sheen gives him a lot to think about. And I just love this moment where it's just crossfades. This is so Rob Reiner, where he's just walking around having a good think about America.
Yep.
Because tomorrow's the day, the State of the Union. He addresses, but before the State of the Union, because we need to show someone who's like, I have to go off script. I can't do this at the State of the Union. I'm just going to tell this press room. He talks about his character slander. He gives his big speech, and it's the big thing that's going to win everyone over. He says that he's throwing out the crime bill. He's going to a more aggressive version of the environment bill, that 20% instead of the 10%.
Yeah, he's basically saying, like, I'm going to do what Sydney wanted. He doesn't say that, but he's doing it for the right reasons now.
Right.
And I just want to note, he says, I'm going to get the guns. And I just want to emphasize
he's
that.
going to take all the guns.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that for next scene, but that's all.
Yes. No, I'm 100% with you. Yeah, he goes to task on Dreyfus, basically wraps up all of the things that were set up in the previous scene, saying that he has no character and he's out at, like, Sidney Ellen Wade, she's out of your league because she has done a bunch of great, humanitarian things, and you don't have any character. And he ends this speech with, "My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president."
Right. He also says,
great.
like, I love 2 women. I lost one to cancer, and I lost the other for, like, not doing my job or something like that, which is the most dad idea, right? Not only is he good that he's a workaholic, but he's not working enough. And also, like, the American people are listening to this going, what the fuck?
What is he talking about?
So, like, I would argue if I were running against him, I would be like, the president had a breakup and changed the laws.
Policies.
He changed his policies based off the breakup. This is literally what we were warning you about.
Right. We can't have someone who's this unhinged.
Yeah.
In office.
Yeah.
Because that's... Keep your personal shit personal. We know it sucks, but you're the president, right?
Yeah. Like, this is terrible optics.
But yeah, let's say what we want to say about I'm going to take all the guns because my take is that he's just going to lose, right?
Oh, okay. So I had a more dark take. Yeah, well, yes. Again, he's going to lose because he's saying, I'm going to take all your guns. And also it's because my girlfriend told me to.
Yeah.
And that's bad. But the next scene, he's like, I'm going to go to her house and I'm going to convince her to take me back. I want a car. I'm going to drive a car.
A Chevy.
I want a non-bulletproof automobile. He says non-bulletproof.
Right.
And he's like, and I'm going to drive over there. And I was like, my man, you literally just said on the air that you're going to take everyone's guns. And now you want to get in a non-bulletproof car by yourself and drive into the city.
That's why
you
he
are
specifies
committing
it.
suicide.
That's why he specifies it, though. It's perfect. It's a boomer dream. He's like, I will own the libs. It's the equivalent of saying I will own the libs by not wearing, like, bulletproof vests or something like that. I will own the Republicans.
This is one of those things we should have noted from the start. Every time he tries to make a romantic gesture, he says, I'm going to do it myself. I want to use my own credit card. I'm going to go into the flower shop. And that's a very big dad energy, which is you don't give this to an assistant. It's no condoms, God damn it. No love condoms.
It's got to be raw.
You got to raw dog your love. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to do it yourself. You build that shed by yourself. And so, like, that's what's happening, right? And that's his attitude throughout. But what it does still create is a moment where the president of the United States wants to go out in public with no protection after announcing that he's going to get rid of guns. And if I were the Secret Service, I would tase the president to save his life.
Yeah, I would inject a serum or just a sedative into him and let him chill out for a few hours.
It'd be like, sir, we are about to commit, like, mutiny to save your life.
Yeah, I don't think you understand. I'm surprised that this hasn't happened before, frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't have to do any of that, though, because it's another boomer fantasy. His girlfriend is already here. She's arrived. Annette Bening has already taken him back because she was listening in her car. and they fuck in the Oval Office until the end
right
of
there on the
credits.
desk.
No.
No, she says, "I didn't come back because of the fucking environment bill." Or he says, "I didn't do that for you," and she's like, "I didn't come back because of that." And it's like, yeah, I mean, the public's gonna think that though.
Yeah,
Still,
the public's
you really tanked your fucking.
He's gonna lose. He's gonna lose
He's
the bill,
absolutely gonna
and he's
lose.
gonna lose the election. But hey, they're together. So the movie ends with him walking in the State of the Union,
And what does
everyone's
everybody
clapping.
do? Yeah, everybody
Everyone
claps.
claps. Yep,
And that's the end.
That's the American president. That's the American president.
I love this stupid fucking movie.
This fucking movie, man.
I love it so much.
So
It makes me happy every time I watch it. Like
Every
this
time.
is I've watched this movie, no joke, probably about 15 times.
I probably watched it like 10. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is my like feel bad movie. It is the movie that I put on if I just need to cheer up. And it is stupid.
It's so good. And it's that political shit. It's this and Dave. I will do back,
Dave,
like,
yeah.
double header. Yeah, not
I'm
your
less
name.
into Dave, but I respect Dave.
Yeah. It's the same energy though. It's the
Yeah.
same.
Oh
like-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it's all about like let's get down to earth grassroots presidents.
Yeah. Or like what's the one with Warren Beatty? Bulworth. Remember
Bulworth.
Bulworth?
Yeah, that's right.
That's a
right.
darker one.
Right. Well, yeah, it's darker.
That's like a Sorkin plot that then just gets like really realistic.
Right. It's like anti-wag the dog kind
Yeah.
of. Like that's not the shit I'm for. I'm for the folksy wholesome shit.
Right.
That's the dad shit. That's the true dad shit, I think.
Yeah. Uncut. Like a
uncut.
good rock of crack.
Yeah, rock hard
this-
daddy.
This movie is my crack. It really is.
Yeah, Sorkin's crack is crack. I think we should talk about. So. This is a good segue. We finished the movie. We got inside this dad. So let's end this podcast by kind of entering the smoking room. That's what I call it. This segment, to the smoking room,
Yep.
where I want to talk about what do we learn about this. We're at episode 3. We're gonna go to episode 4. We've talked about 2 films, We Are Marshall and The Judge.
We will. I assume we're going to end this by telling people what the next film is, right?
Sure. Yeah. We can talk about that.
People will know this by the name of the next one. Women Are in Danger. That's number 1
Yes.
to me. Number 1
It's
is
not
Reverence.
Reverence for the system. Yes.
And I'll
history.
throw in, Women in Danger. What
Women
else you
in
got?
Danger. I think that it's something about using guile in fights is something that we talk about in this
Yes.
movie. It's
Cleverness.
the Sorkin cleverness. Violence is only when necessary. We have the bombing scene, and there's a moral center to the viciousness that life can create, and
Right.
dads protect us from.
Yep. Daughters.
Yep.
Period. Clever daughters. We love them.
Clever daughters.
That's not in all of these, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, the last 3 at least, they were all daddies, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're all daddies. Now this one, you don't. We don't have the fucking your possible daughter.
No, but we
But-
didn't in We Are Marshall either.
Yeah, we did.
But they all were parents. Like Matthew McConaughey had kids. I would also say sports, references to sports.
Yeah, let's hit up some sports references and make our the vibe of our family like male bonding comes down to sports.
Yeah. You know what was missing from this, I think? Piss and poop.
I was gonna
Are
say
funny.
piss and shit are not as
But dicks. We have dicks in this.
We do have dicks. So let's update the list with piss and shit and dicks, or one of the above. How
All
about
right.
that?
Are you writing this down?
I am writing it down because
Oh, wow.
really do want to have something that I can reference. Is like This is the dad movie. Another thing that I want to point out, and now we're getting to the auxiliary ones. Really, there's a part of the inciting incident or the preamble to a character detail is tragedy.
Tragedy. Yeah.
The concept in this movie of him being a widow.
Yep.
In We
That
Are
goes-
Marshall, it's the plane crash, the literal inciting incident.
Right.
et
That
cetera,
goes
et cetera.
hand in hand, I think, with women are in peril.
Yeah.
I do think we talked about like guile and cleverness. I think there's a element of doing your job and being underestimated. Because in every single one, the judge, he's sort of underestimated in his cleverness, right? It's about getting the job done. We are Marshall. It's about we're going to coach this thing no matter what. We talked about the idea of plowing through your emotions. We're definitely seeing that in all of these, right?
Plowing through emotions. Dads want to have control over grief.
Yep. Control over grief, or I'm not going to get in a character debate with this guy. We're plowing ahead, staying the course, and whether or not that's good or not, I think that's a big part of it.
I 100% agree.
And I would say I'm trying to figure out the right word for this. It's kind of like bureaucracy. We have the presidency. We have these parts where they're making deals, right? Maybe making deals is the right word. But then we have courtroom dramas. And then I feel like even in the sports one, there's some bureaucracy as well. But not as much. There's like the boardroom meeting about like what's going to happen to the team. But I feel like there's something there. I also feel like there's an element of, and then they all clapped. But that might not be exclusive to a dad film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have Marshall kind of has it.
It kind of has it. Yeah. That's right. Another thing is that it was kind of like we talked about piss and shit and dicks. I think it's more specific than that now that I think about it, because when I'm looking at the other movies, we need to have proof at some point that like his dick works or that he's sexually or physically powerful. We need to tell the dad that like, yes, dad, you are the strong one.
Right.
Yes.
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 Yes. This is all. Yeah, I think. Okay.
This is what I like.
Yeah, and I think so. For episode 4, we're going to do these in batches. Lord knows I want to keep doing these. And so as long as both of us are alive, you know, as long as one of us doesn't get shot by the FBI, I'm not saying who, but as long as that doesn't happen, we'll keep doing it. But I think for episode 4, we should like really come to a solid list. Like right now, we have a lot of like floating ideas. I think every single one should be summed up in like a sentence.
Like, yeah, we're dialing it into like I'm starting to see like a formulation of like big 3 and like, you know, maybe like 2 or 3 other like ones that are pretty much stand up.
Right.
But there's like, it's starting to like, we're finding a unified field theory of dad, I think.
Yes.
Is what we're doing here.
I think the next one's going to be really surprising because I already know there is an element missing that's in all 3 of these other films of that film, which is that our next film covers characters who aren't literally fathers.
That's when we start getting into the good stuff, because it's like, what is dad when there is no dad?
When there is no dad, what makes a dad?
What is essence of dad?
Yes, the spunk of dad.
Yes, and that movie that we're going to be watching, so you can watch along with us. So next week, when we appear for episode 4, make sure you queue up in the old watcher, The Fugitive.
1993's The Fugitive, the prequel to U.S. Marshals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who had Robert Downey Jr. on cocaine in it.
Yes, it did.
But don't watch U.S. Marshals.
Doing a real
necessarily.
Sorkin.
We'll be talking about The Fugitive.
The Fugitive. Which,
The one-armed
I
man.
mean, of course we are. Of course we'll be talking about The
We gotta
Fugitive.
be talking about it. Yeah, and so we're also, you know, as per this this podcast, we're going to be talking about in an auxiliary way, essentially what like these, because we had like We Are Marshall, it's sports movies in general. We're trying to use it as a stand-in so we don't have to cover like 800 movies. And today we talked about, you know, romances and such. So when we talk about The Fugitive, we're going to be throwing in other action thrillers as well.
Yes, but we selected these knowing we're going to keep doing this show. So like, if you're like, wow,
We'll come
there's some
back to
obvious dad films of X genre
Yeah.
you missed.
We
like,
know.
we're not going to do one genre only once. We are we're sort of warming up, right?
We see the comments. We know people are already saying, like, where's Master and Commander? Where's the Patriot?
Right.
Where's
Have people actually
Gladiator?
commenting that?
I don't know. I'm just calling my
Oh,
shot.
okay, yeah, because I'm not.
You don't read. You don't read, though.
I'll try.
What about Air Force One? We know. We'll talk about them. We're doing this the way we want to do it. You know why? Because we're dads.
Yes, and I just want to say,
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that not about The Fugitive, because to me, I'm gonna have a really hard time figuring out what's more of a dad film than The Fugitive. In my head, that is the president of dad films. That's the Michael Douglas of
it's
of
the dad
films.
of the dad films.
It really is. And so I'm excited to talk about that.
Here's something that we haven't even talked about, though. We haven't, and maybe this will be down the line when we have an episode 5. We haven't even talked about war movies, motherfucker.
I know. So many. My problem with a war movie is that, like, in order to really do a dad war movie, it has to be like a 10-part Ken Burns documentary, right? That's technically the ultimate.
That's true, yeah.
But Lord help us if we have to cover documentaries.
No, we're not going to cover Ken Burns baseball. We're not going to do it.
Okay,
and I don't think we're going to cover Saving Private Ryan, even though that's one of the more perfect dad movies, just because we've talked about Saving
Conflict
Private
of
Ryan
interest.
twice on this network. It was our first Frame Rate, and also we talked about it on Spiel Boys, and it's just like, all right, I'm done talking about Saving Private Ryan.
Absolutely.
We can find another one. We can talk about Black Hawk Down or whatever. It'll be fine. But yeah, that's a wrap on romance. We will never talk about romance ever again, because we did it, and it's all we need.
Yeah, there might be another somewhere, but I can't think of one right away.
It's not as perfect.
It's harder. It's a hard pill to swallow, which is why you have to wrap it in Martin Sheen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe we'll talk Cape Fear or something.
Cape Fear is a dad film.
You know that romance film.
it's not a romance film, but it is a dad film.
Yeah, we have to talk about horror at some point. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We've been dads. You've been listeners. I hope that you enjoyed this. Dave, if they liked what you were yapping about during this episode, where else can they find you? Right.
So thank you for listening to this on the Small Beans Network. I also have a network with Tom Ryman called Gamefully Unemployed, GAMEFULOY, Unemployed, wherever you get your podcasts, or go to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed to get exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We also do podcasts with the Small Beans Network, such as Star Trek The Next Futurama and Spiel Boys, as you mentioned. That is all. I'm on Twitter at Movie Hooligan, and I guess I am on other things, but don't expect me to be active on, honestly, any of those.
On anything. Don't expect anything.
In real life, don't expect me to get up or to, like, walk around much, you know?
I'm the same way. And I can be found on Twitter at Abe the Mighty. Go to patreon.com/smallbeans. You're going to catch all the things that he mentioned. If you enjoy this and are part of Free Feed, visit, throw us a few dollars, keep the lights on. It would be great. There's a bunch of exclusive shows you'll get by doing so, including probably this one. I haven't decided what exactly I'm going to put behind the paywall, and I make the decisions. So if you have any issues with that, you can email at thesmallbeans@gmail.com, and give me just a piece of your mind. But from here on in, we continue to be dads, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Dads.